Woman expressed, because this world needs women unafraid of their own magic. Welcome to the show, where we explore what it means to be a fully expressed woman, a woman aligned with her desires and dreams, a woman who knows her potential is well within reach. Here, magic happens. What is up, fam? Welcome back to another episode of Woman Expressed, France edition. I haven't recorded in a couple weeks, I think 2 weeks to be exact, and that is because sometimes, as women, we make verbal commitments around our work and then physically cannot. And sometimes we got to be listening to our intuition, and let me tell you, this week we are going to be talking about the importance of listening to your intuition. I'm coming to you live from my very cute bedroom in Saint-Brieuc, northern France, a little village in the middle of nowhere in Brittany, France. And I'm living with 5 men who are all working together on this project that my boyfriend is working on. And then there's me, and they're working the night shift right now, which is absurd. It's like 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. I guess that's not fully the night shift, but night shift enough that at 8 p.m. they leave the house and it's just me, and it's so beautiful. And I have this window that opens up to this little village on the harbor, and it's been really lovely. And I've been sleeping a lot and exploring and eating really delicious food and drinking wine and trying to limit my sugar intake. And yeah, life's just been doing its thing, and I decided that it was time to get back behind the mic and give some updates and talk about following your intuition religiously, like it's your full-time job, and what happens when you do follow that internal thread that is the strongest knowing you could ever possibly have, and simultaneously what happens when you don't listen. And we'll start with a little story time. If you follow me on Instagram, maybe you already saw the little story time I shared there, but obviously have to share here as well. So it is Monday as I record this. I arrived in Paris last week. Is that so? Yeah, last Tuesday. It's been 6 days. It's felt like a lifetime. Anyways, I arrived in Paris last Tuesday with a 60-pound suitcase, a 40-pound suitcase, a tote bag, and my guitar. Am I a sane person? The answer is absolutely not. Mind you, I already sent a 60-pound suitcase with Luke when he left New York. I forget if I told you about this already, but I'm reminding you if so. I'm a maximalist with my stuff, and I've been really sitting with this actually the last few weeks of consumption. Granted, a lot of my things are from ethical places and secondhand, and I try not to be an overconsumer, but I love my things. I love my clothes. I love my beauty products. I wanted to bring all my podcast gear and my many cameras and all the things and my supplements and blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, those things carry physical weight. And so, yeah, I basically decided that I was going to upgrade to business class, which was a luxury and a treat. And shout out Capital One Venture X travel card, not sponsored, but if you want to sponsor me, go for it, because I have been a nomad for 6 years now, and I just got a travel card this year. I am just learning how to be travel literate at 29 ripe years of age, when literally I started traveling pretty much 20 plus flights a year in 2021. So what's a girl got to do to backtrack time and get back all those points I missed? But it's okay. No time like the present to make better decisions, and I was able to upgrade, which is just, again, such a treat to be horizontal for a red eye. Vertical red eyes are criminal. If you know, you know. And I was able to get 2 free bags instead of 1, which was very important because I needed those bags and my guitar to be my carry-on. So anyways, beautiful flight, drinking champagne, having a great time. We're going to Paris, baby. I'm super excited. And we land, and I get off the plane, and I move through security super fast. I land at 12:50. My train from Montparnasse, which is apparently very far from the Charles de Gaulle airport. And I make it through the airport in like top speed, but then I get to baggage claim and it's just taking forever. I think it took 40 minutes for me to get my bags. And by the time I get my bags, I see that it's an hour and 25-minute Uber ride to this friggin' train station. And I'm like, okay, Paris, that's a bit insane. Last night I checked, it was 47 minutes. And so my partner Luke is like, no, get a train, you'll be fine. I'm like, you cannot feel these suitcases. I'm getting an Uber. I get in the Uber. It says I'm arriving at the train station at 3:03. My train's at 2:57. Not such a vibe. But I'm going. I call Luke. And he is a master planner. He's always coming up with proactive solutions. It's just in his character. I love him for it deeply. It's very, very reassuring for my brain to know that someone's constantly thinking about all options and planning accordingly. But his plan this time around involves me getting out of the Uber, getting dropped at a miscellaneous train station on the outskirts of Paris, taking a train to my train station to catch my actual train to Saint-Brieuc. My intuition screams, stay in the Uber, take a later train. Stay in the Uber, take a later train. Because I don't know if you've been to Paris, but there's not a lot of escalators in these train stations. I don't know if there's elevators I was missing, but I'm just thinking they're not very handicap friendly, which I'm not handicapped, but many people are. And I'm like, can we do a little bit better for the people who genuinely need this and also for people like me who have overpacked? And so I just knew I was going to be a little sitting duck, stressed out, asking anyone in sight to carry my bags if I was getting out of this Uber because they were so heavy. But he really wanted me to catch the train and he paid for my ticket. And I was like, fair enough. Let me give it a whirl. Intuition is still screaming, stay in the car. Book a later train. It's not that big of a deal. What is $70 for your comfort? And soon you'll see that listening to your intuition is a fabulous idea. But anyways, I get dropped off at this random town that I don't know the name of, but I was later told I should not be hanging about in, especially with massive suitcases and a very clear American tagged on my forehead, even though, you know, I try not to be such a tourist, but I just looked the part, I suppose. And I get out and it feels like, okay, I'm going to do this. I get to the stairs. No escalator. Lug my shit down the stairs. I get into the booth, or I get into the little entrance area. There's no ticket booth. And in Paris, they have these like plastic sliding doors that you show your ticket. They slide open, they slide closed. I'm standing there like, what the fuck? Why am I here? What am I doing? There's no one around. I'm like, how am I getting in? And then I see these two men standing beside me, and they're looking at me, and I don't like it. My intuition says, bad news. Put your phone away. Specifically, my intuition said, Emma, you should put your phone in your bag. This doesn't seem like a good little gang over here. Yeah. And I didn't listen once again. And then this sweet old lady is like, do you guys need to come through? And the two men are like, yes. And I say, I'm following. And I really wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had just stayed where I was and let them do their thing. Maybe they would have found another victim. Not that I would have wished that upon anyone else, but also wouldn't have been opposed to it not being me. Anyways, I get through these little doors, lugging my stuff. I pause. This woman pauses. I take a 2-minute breather just to figure out where I'm going. And within 10 seconds of me pausing, these men run up behind me and rip my phone out of my hand. It's not anywhere. It's in my hand. They rip it. Thankfully, it's locked. Not that I had such a crazy protective password. If you know anything about me on a personal level, you know my passwords are nothing fancy, at least for my phone, because I'm lazy. Now I've upgraded, so no one's hijacking my phone these days. But anyways, they ran off straight out of the train station with my phone, Mind you, I'm not in the center of Paris. I'm not around anything I know. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere. I do not know my boyfriend's number. I do not know which train I'm taking. I do not know how to get to the station I'm meant to get at. I do not know how to access my tickets, which upon reflection, I could have accessed my tickets on my computer, and I did in the end. Anyways, I'm like jaw on the floor. What the fuck? Thank heavens, thank literal heavens, this old lady is right there watching it. And she speaks a little bit of English. And I'm like, they just stole my fucking phone out of my hand. They stole my phone out of my hand. I feel like such a tourist right now. I'm like, what? In my 6 years of traveling, never have I ever had anything stolen. Knock on wood. I pray to not have anything stolen again. This is a first for me. And it couldn't be a worse situation. And I'm like, why the fuck did you get out of the Uber, Emma? You literally knew. I was so annoyed. And I'm like trying not to cry, trying not to panic. I'm like, I'm a very capable young woman. I can navigate this, but also what the fuck? And that's my phone. And also it could have been so much worse if they stole my bag. My bag had my laptop, 2 passports, my wallet, so much stuff, my journal, things that if I sat with it, it would have been a million times worse if they stole my bag. I had an extra phone waiting for me here. I had a spare phone that I gave to Luke a few months prior, and I have insurance. So I'm getting a new phone sent to me. All is well in the world. But in this moment, all was not well. And this woman, bless her soul, gives me her phone to try to call Luke, whose number I don't know. I go on her Instagram to try to call Luke. She has settings disabled, so I can't call him. I don't speak French well enough to read what the heck her phone is saying. So she says, come with me. I'm taking you on the train. And bless her soul, she brought me to the stairs, asked 2 different men to carry my bags for me because I literally couldn't, got me on the right train, and then let me use her phone to call Luke. So I had to pull out my computer to get Luke's number from WhatsApp, called him like 6 times in a row, and he didn't fucking answer his phone. And I was just like, please, in this moment, can you please answer your phone? I need you to pick up your phone. But he wasn't picking up. So then I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's happening. Then this other girl comes up to me, this literal angel of a French girl who sounds pretty American. And she told me she lived in the States for a while and speaks perfect English. And at that point, Luke had finally called me back. And so I explained to her what happened. And she was like, okay, I'm taking you to your station, to your train. Don't worry. You shouldn't do this alone. Don't stress. And also, why the hell were you in that train station? It is like super known amongst Parisians to not be in there alone and to not like hang out there. So I was like, great, beautiful information. And I was able to send my ticket to her, have Luke send my ticket to her phone. And this sweet angel, heaven sent woman ran with me, sprinted with me through the Montparnasse station for like 10 minutes with 2 minutes to spare for my train. I just made it. She gave them my tickets and was able to message Luke to tell him I was good. I got on my train. I made it to Saint-Brieuc with no other problems except actually getting off the train, carrying my huge bags down a huge flight of stairs, and then having to ask another man to carry them up a flight of stairs because Luke wasn't there yet. And at that point, I was crying and just like, this is my fault. This is my doing, not the getting robbed part, but the having way too much stuff and not listening to my intuition when it said to not get out of the Uber and put yourself in a stressful situation that you don't need to put yourself in. And so if I could leave you with any small but important piece of wisdom today, it is that your intuition knows everything. It really does have a strong sense of knowing, and obviously sometimes it's speaking from wounding and fear instead of truth. So taking care of yourself and understanding your trauma and your past and working with your soma and different tools and practices, which we can go into another day, to understand the difference between intuition and fear is deeply important. But I'm someone who's spent a lot of time on this, and I have a lot of understanding and awareness of my intuition. And I knew I wasn't supposed to go on a train with my stuff. I knew not that I would get robbed, but that carrying around all that stuff was not going to put me in a good situation to be efficient and quick and have easeful transportation. And so lesson is super, super learned, completely learned. And I didn't think it was really such a big deal. Like, obviously it was shit. But then my mom called me and was like, are you okay? Like, that's so invasive and traumatizing. And I was like, no, like, it's fine. And I feel like that's actually a pretty common theme in my life, is not, undervaluing or ignoring or pushing past hard things, but just kind of finding the lesson in them. And, I wasn't angry. It was annoying for sure, but it was just like, cool. I didn't listen to myself. I knew it was a bad idea and there were consequences. And of course they were shitty consequences, but I also just immediately understood the lesson. Like, it could have been way worse. They didn't steal my luggage. Don't do it again. Next time, listen to your intuition. Like, I was instantly to the understanding of why this happened and what I could do to not have it happen again. But then that night when Luke left, and I'm in the house by myself at night, which is pretty lovely, but this night, I think it was the night after, the second night, I couldn't fall asleep and I was just crying and crying and crying. And I stayed up till 4 a.m. because I was actually feeling and processing the trauma of like experiencing all the what ifs. Like, I feel like that's sometimes what trauma can do to you as well, is like not actually having you remember what happened or putting you back in the situation of what happened, but putting you in this replay or loop cycle of what if they did steal my bags instead and I had nothing, or what if they kidnapped me, or, knock on wood, but like all of the worst potential outcomes that could have happened started spiraling in my brain. And I was just here alone and I really wanted Luke, but he was at work and very busy. And I ended up staying up till 4 a.m. just like sobbing. And it was actually really needed to like process this experience that I was robbed, even if it was not that big of a deal. And I'm getting the new phone this week and I have an iCloud, and there's not immense harm done in tangible form, but in the intangibles, like these men took advantage of me being by myself and were aggressive and ripped my phone out of my hand. And it was just shitty. And all of that is a lesson in following your intuition. So it was a little bit of a rocky start to my Europe journey, but now I'm here. It's very safe here. I am noticing that I have a bit of fear that I didn't have before, which I don't love, but I'm trusting will pass with time. Like, when I'm in public, I'm like clutching onto my stuff now. And everyone says people pickpocket in Paris, but I just never subscribed to the belief that these things could happen to me. I live in a pretty delusional world, and I feel like generally that works. But I put myself in a situation where this could happen this time. And it's obviously not my fault, but my responsibility to take better care of my needs when I know I need a certain thing. And for Luke, it wouldn't have been such a big deal to take the train, but if I maybe just had a backpack. But anyways, now I'm here and I'm going back to Paris this week, which I'm stoked about. I will not be near that train station, but I will be exploring and just being in my creation. I had a really big revelation last night where I realized that I've been consuming so much because the content in my world is so good. Like, my algorithm is amazing and beautiful, and I'm so inspired. It's not brain rot. It's intellectually stimulating and psychologically beautiful and philosophical and creative and artistic, and it's lovely. And I really am inspired every time I go on my Instagram. And I notice that I've just been saving so much because I'm so inspired by it that I'm not as connected to what I actually want to create and what's feeling the most true or untrue, because I'm so tapped into what everyone else is doing. And so I started building out this Notion page that's going to be this like creative hub for me, with habits and daily trackers and a writing nook and a reading nook and a personal curriculum of things I want to study or learn, or articles, essays, etc. that I want to explore. And I feel really excited to be taking space from consumption and just focusing on creation, even if it doesn't perform as well, or it's not as interesting, or even if it requires me to take more space from being online, because I feel really tired of the hamster wheel and tired of creating for my offers, or creating because I'm supposed to, or creating for the trendy, easy shit. Like, I want to be an artist. I am an artist, but I want to actually show up for my brand from that deep place of artistry and actually uncover what it is I'm interested in right now, and what it is I'm fond of taking on right now, and what it is I'm saying yes to right now versus what I'm saying no to right now. And so I'm taking a break, which is funny because I spent the morning searching books. I just have been on such a fiction kick, rather, very smutty fantasy, sci-fi, which has been incredible. But I realized I haven't really read a lot of nonfiction in a few years now. In 2021, I read like 100 nonfiction books with my ex-partner, and I learned so much. And then I absolutely despised reading, and I felt such disdain towards reading because I had essentially prescribed myself a year's worth of fixing myself and developing my character rather than just living it. And those books changed my life, but then I needed a break, and I didn't read for 2 years until I picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses. And now it's been 2.5, almost 3 years of reading pretty much solely fiction, but 96% fantasy and sci-fi. And I feel finally ready and in this place of understanding myself that I can jump back into fiction in a good way. And what did I start reading? Civil Disobedience by Ralph Waldo Emerson. I might be mixing together 2 books. Let's check. Kindle in hand. Yes, I'm checking because I want to give you factual information on what I'm reading. It's super fascinating. Oh, no, Civil Disobedience was the last book I was reading, and it was genuinely above my pay grade. It's so fascinating to read books in your language and realize you don't know how to comprehend them. I'm learning French, so I'm like reading children's books in French and I can't comprehend that. And then I'm reading a book in English and it's going entirely over my head. This is called Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's actually a pretty challenging read. Like I'm noticing I will pause and read it back to myself aloud to actually fully comprehend what it is I'm reading. But I'm only 6% in, and the general gist is that our lives are meaningless without taking creative action towards our dreams, and our relationship with God and spirituality is entirely dependent on our ability to create and take action towards our creations. And it's really fascinating, and I'm so glad I picked this one up. I just downloaded a bunch of books, and this one feels really on brand because he's also talking about the fact that we get so deeply clouded by the thoughts of man and the creations of man and all of the vast, miraculous, thought-provoking, intellectually stimulating, and creative endeavors that humans have embarked on in our days, in our centuries of human experiencing. And therefore, we are often deeply disconnected of the true potential of our own creative essence because we're surrounded by noise. And I don't think I could have picked up this book at a better time. But the reason I bring this up is because I was searching on Instagram all morning for like an hour and a half on books to read. And I feel using Instagram for a good reason to do research. And then I clicked on my For You page just to see. And now it's all like thought daughters, philosophy books, creative endeavors, like essays on Substack to be more intentional with your consumption. And now it's like peak paradoxical moment where my For You page would actually support me in getting offline with all of these beautiful tools and resources and books and information. But in order to get that information, I'd have to be scrolling. And so I've decided I'm not going to look, even though it's so tempting because the For You page is on point. But the whole goal of this era of my life is to not consume much, even if the consumption is super cool, and to just be in this process of who am I without any external stimulation, and to really return to my own sense of creative expression without the noise. And so that's my plan. If you feel like joining along with me, please do. I'm dopamine detoxing over here. I'm taking space from social media, still creating if I want, not feeling so inspired to create in this moment. I'm also late luteal, so I'm just going to relax and let myself be and write. I've been writing a lot. I've really been enjoying Substack. I'll link my Substack in the show notes if you feel like reading. I do like little short essays and poetry, and that feels like a space that has no end goal, just permission to write and to be myself. And yeah, it's a different energy from Instagram since it's so intertwined with my business, even though I love Instagram and it's such a gift. And I love being able to support women in architecting their reality to live life on their own terms and express. But there are two sides of that coin, and one side of that coin is consumption, and one side of that coin is creation. And there are blurry lines between them if you don't take real good care and have immensely strong boundaries. And so that's the practice we're embarking on right now. And that feels, like the truth of my experience. I am about to embark on a long and beautiful summer of a lot of creative expression. And if you want to join in on that fun, we still have a few final spaces for the Muse Collective Creative Residency in Italy. We're not just anything. It's in 1 month from today. We're 1 month away, and it would be a dream to have you there. And we're just going to make art on the Mediterranean with insane women. And that's pretty much the vibe in my world right now. I am doing a very special interview this week. I haven't done an interview for the podcast in a long time since it's evolved into Woman Expressed. It's been solely solo episodes, but we do have a guest who is the founder of one of my all-time favorite brands in this world. You probably know the brand. I'm not going to tell you, but no, it's luscious, delicious, magical, perfect, gorgeous in every way. And the founder is an alchemist and a healer. And she's also an author of a book I love deeply and I will recommend to you next week. And I'm super excited to interview in a couple days. And that will be our episode for next week. So stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm sending you a lot of love from France.